Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Edna Kenigisa. I'm a trainee at the Heavenly Father, we thank you for the gift of life that you have given to us. We thank you for bringing us together for this common cause. We pray for your continued presence during this meeting. We pray for thought of clarity and unity, and may you bless us with the wisdom to make informed decisions. And in the end, may glory and honor go back to you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
Go straight to the introductions. I guess she already introduced herself. Let's just go.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I am Selcom Hakim Buyana. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Derek Kumpundo. I'm the Forest Officer in the Ministry of Water and Environment in the Forest Sector Support Department.
Good afternoon. I'm Caroline Najuko, Climate Change Officer in the Climate Change Department and the Ministry of Water and Environment.
Hello, everyone. Patricia Gaviar, my name. I work at WWF as the project officer under the Africa project.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nambos Irene. I work with Emily.
Everyone, my name is National Advisor.
Good afternoon. I'm Nathan Manolo from the Ministry of Water and Environment, Department of Environment Sector Support Services.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Wimba from the Climate Action Network.
Good afternoon. Solomon Yabando, Forest Officer, Ministry of Water and Environment.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Xavier. I am a consultant attached to the Red Cross Secretariat, supported by MLA and also by FAO.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Bachika. I am with Emily today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Violet. I work with Emily.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bishop Sunday, leading the team of consultants. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kisa is my name, part of the consultant team. Good afternoon, everyone. Tillerman is my name, part of the consultant.
Good afternoon, everyone. Catherine Atkunda, I'm part of the consultants.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is my name and I work with them.
Good afternoon. I'm Anna Kandanaho. I work with the code.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Pastor Change from TikTok. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sinanga Derek from the Ministry of Water and Environment, Climate Change Department. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pastor Kinamasko. I work with Bioecosystems, Conservation and Open Meetings.
Good afternoon. Solomon Mohammed from Climate Change Department.
Good afternoon, everyone. Christine Matosa. I work with Emily.
I work with you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Krutum Nathima. I work with Emily.
Thank you. I think we have one who has just.
Good afternoon, everyone. John Robert Yacher and Elected Ugly.
Okay, so we have the virtual team. Let's give them the opportunity to introduce themselves. Please go on.
Good afternoon. My name is Monica Bryan.
work with the National Forestry, the GIS and mapping unit. Thank you.
Okay, Philip.
Hello. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Philip Chipumuro. I've been working as a FRECA project manager, but until recently, I am the landscapes coordinator with WWF Uganda. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Alex Atuizuche. I work with the Anti-Corruption Coalition in Uganda.
Thank you. Mr. Bob Kazungu.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Sincere apologies, I could not join you physically for 2 reasons, which are tight. But my name is Bob Kazungu, Assistant Commissioner for Forestry in charge of assessment, but also the National Red Plus focal point for Uganda. Pleasure to be here online. Thank you.
We have Richard. Richard, can you introduce yourself? Okay, thank you very much. Again, you're welcome. We are going to have, do we all know why we are here? Yep. Yeah? You might be here and you're like, why am I here? What is this? So I think we are going to welcome Mr. Robert Bachika with the welcome remarks, and then he will also give us a background to this validation workshop, to this study, how it started, and of course why we're here for some of the people that don't know. And before I hand over the microphone, I'd like to introduce my team. This study had a technical review team to which I was a chairperson. So if you were part of the team, please raise up and say hello to people. You've done a good job. And yeah, I want people to see what we've done. So thank you. Yeah, I'll hand over to Robert for the welcome remarks.
Thank you very much, Chair. Originally, I thought I would just tell you why we are here, but you have reminded me to talk about why this is happening. Again, I take this opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Robert Bachika. I advise that Emily also serve as the in-country facilitator for NDC, is based in the Climate Change Department. So this afternoon marks the validation of a study which has been ongoing, I think, for 4 months, if I'm not mistaken. And the study aimed to help give us the status of things as far as emissions and removals are concerned in Uganda. As you know, Emily is implementing a project supported by WWF through Bella. Happy to note the colleague from WWF and Philip. And this project is about forests absorbing carbon. So one of the project activities was to conduct a study to ascertain emissions from deforestation, degradation, and also the removals. And specifically, this study was aimed to contribute to the ongoing work led by the Ministry of Water and Environment in revising the updated nationally determined contribution. As some of you recall, one of the steps in the NDC3 process was to undertake data collection, information, and assessments. So in addition to other so many assessments which are running to inform NDC3, which now is going to be the second NDC for Uganda. Emily will also be contributing these study findings to help in informing the mitigation work relating under forestry. So the objectives of the study were 4, as you will also be reminded by the consultants. 1 was to review and identify and review the existing approaches for estimating emissions under land use change and forestry activity of the AFOL sector. AFOL is agriculture, forestry, and land use. Second was to quantify forest carbon stocks and gains across a period of 2015-2023. Please don't worry about these terminologies. The consultants are going to explain them. Third was to estimate emissions and removals from LULUCF. I said LULUCF is land use change, and forestry. And fourth, to assess the mitigation potential of forests, taking into account a range of forestry management practices. So you can see that this study, we were trying to consolidate information, correlate it, and then generate a product which will be used for the formulation of the revision of the NBC, which is currently ongoing, led by the Climate Change Department in the Ministry of Water and Environment. So to that effect, Madam Chair, I want to say we are grateful that always when you start something, invite people you started with and they witness. When you go for a wedding, you are rarely invited when people are separating. Up to now, I fail to understand why. But for us, today we are lucky. The team we invited at Africana during the launch of the study, we thank God that many of you are arrived. You are going to celebrate Christmas. And you are here today to witness what you launched and guide us whether you think the objectives and your expectations were met. And we really want to thank Chair, the partners, especially Velax. Velax is a Danish company which under FRECA has come up to show its good cause by investing in forests as one of the mitigation potential, and has communicated that it will not retire. It will not retire the credits. It will have absorbed from its initiatives through WWF. But it's a good gesture of corporate social responsibility. So we are not talking that Verax will come and say it wants to sell its credits. It is retiring them and appreciating the investment for the good cause of nature. And without forgetting the Ministry of Water, especially the Forest Sector Support Department, for working with us during this journey and accepting to lead a technical expert team which has guided the consultant. I want to say the journey has not been easy. One time the consultant really felt like the TORs were being redeveloped. But I'm happy, at least today, we are here. And as I conclude, I want to say, Chair, that we look forward to see how the different stakeholders are going to use the findings of this study, as it has been our plea that in Uganda, the people who publish Uganda information are not Ugandan institutes. one of my plea and my cry for the last 10 years has been, why should Global Forest Watch publish emission data for Uganda? And as I speak now, IMF has completed mission. And what shocked me, IMF also cited Global Forest Watch data. And simply because it is the only data available online. You won't get any other publication. So much as we are contributing information to inform NDC modeling work, but also we want to publish at least snapshots. For those of you who are still interested in searching information on mitigation emissions, to know in Uganda, there are institutions that do this work and they have the capacity. Not go for Global Forest Watch and others. So, Chair, that's one of my key plea, and I'm happy that at least we have something which, once this meeting will validate, we'll be able to share and bring up with. Thank you, and I want to, Chair, with your permission, invite WWF. Before I return to you, to invite the representative of the Ministry of Water to also make their remarks, Chair. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm Todd Philip.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, Robert, for that wonderful introduction. And I'm glad to be attending this meeting virtually, although I would have loved to be physically present. But I'm glad that, you could accept my apologies from yesterday and that, I will be able to attend virtually. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, colleagues, partners, and all people who are seated at Kampala Kolping Hotel. It gives me great pleasure to join you today for this important validation workshop. First, on the estimation of the greenhouse gas emissions and removals for Uganda's forests. I want to note that this exercise is not just technical, it's a strategic one for our country and our climate ambition and sustainable development. I must suffice to add that, I think we are already seeing progress with a lot of achievements, and I want to applaud the Ministry of Water and Environment and all the partners, first of all, on the $31 million grant for the result-based payment for the period ending 2016 or 2017. I will need to be corrected over that. But this already gives you an indication of the role forests play in our economy, but also in our climate ambition. We recognize that, I think forests remain the backbone of our country's ecological integrity and are a very important cornerstone for our climate resilience. We know very well that they provide livelihoods. We all survive based on forests. They regulate the water cycles. And most importantly, they act as carbon sinks as a mitigation framework. I'm also very glad to note that I think our NDC has a follow sector as one of the most important in terms of, emissions, and therefore we need to address that sector. Yet deforestation and degradation continues to threaten these benefits, contributing significantly to the greenhouse gas emissions. I'm also cognizant of the fact that, the country has a National REDD+ strategy and action plan, which clearly highlights the 8 strategic objectives to address the emissions from many of these interventions or many of these actions. So the study we are validating today specifically is a critical step towards this. A critical step because it comes at the moment when really the country is preparing to make a submission for the NDC3, but also we are working to apply the 2019 refinement to the 2006 IPCC guidelines. And this means that, we are improving the accuracy and credibility of our forest-related data. This, I want to believe, will be able to strengthen our country's NDC by integrating in robust science-based targets for the forestry sector. And I want to applaud the consultants who have ably laid this. And I want to say that as WWF, together with our partners, WWF Denmark and VELAX, we are proud to have supported this work. And I want to believe that, it is just a beginning point towards contributing to the broader framework of the country in terms of, forestry policy and ensuring that, we are counted at the global scale. So our objectives here are very clear. First, we want to review and validate the findings of the study. Number two is to ensure that the data can be able to provide us with information and give us policy decisions and practical actions for forest conservation and restoration. I am eagerly waiting to see the outcomes of this in terms of, what is happening specifically where FRECA has been implemented, whether we have had more kind of, emissions or removals, and then what this means and how best we can be able to translate some of the policy recommendations into actual decisions on ground for improved forestry conservation. Then number three, we want to agree on the next steps that will ensure that, we accelerate our transition towards the low carbon development pathway. And this is in line, with what the country has set itself into. But also as WWF Uganda, we are proud to have also aligned our ambition in our 2025-2030 strategy in line with that. And our mission, actually, one of our targets is to reduce emissions by 1.1 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent in the next 5 years through our interventions. And we hope that this can be able to contribute to the overall target of the country. So I want to encourage all of us to engage actively, ask as much as possible, and also contribute our insights and knowledge to help shape this report that not only meets international standards, but also reflects Uganda's realities and aspirations. And I'm glad that, this work is being led by Ugandans, and, we can be able to start now seeing ourselves reporting mostly on this. As we conclude, or maybe as I conclude, let us remember that forests are not just trees. They are our life systems. They kind of, give us the lives that we thrive on. They protect us, and therefore protecting them is our own future. Together, through collaboration and commitment, I want to believe that we can deliver on our country's climate goals and the ambitions, but also making sure that this country is a better place to live in for all of us as we work towards achieving Vision 2040. I thank you and look forward to a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Much, Philip, WWF. I would like to take the opportunity to welcome remarks from Ministry of Water and Environment, Mr. Bob Kazungu, the Assistant Commissioner for Forestry, as well as the National Focal Point REDD+. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair, and maybe also Moderator, for inviting me. As I mentioned, sincere apologies. I could not join you in person. I should have been actually up country, but I turned back. I made a U-turn because of some critical requirement for me back at the office. And so I decided to come in online. Colleagues, my job this afternoon is very easy because I'm just gonna present the opening remarks for this very important engagement. I hope you're able to hear me. All right, okay. I didn't hear that, but let me assume you're hearing me. So representatives from the different ministries, departments, and agencies on this call and in the meeting, the representatives of WWF, Uganda Country Office, and any other development partner, the Executive Director of Environmental Management for Livelihoods Improvement, WISE Facility, or what we call EMLI, members of the Technical Working Group, consultants and researchers, colleagues from the civil society organizations, academia, and the private sector, the media, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. When I pause, it means I would wish that you respond to the afternoon, to the good afternoon, because then I also will confirm that you're hearing me. So, good afternoon. Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much. It is indeed my pleasure to officially open this validation workshop for the study on the estimation of emissions and removals in forests from deforestation and degradation, forest degradation in Uganda. That is being convened by Emily with support from WWF Uganda Country Office. I warmly welcome you all and sincerely thank you for honoring this invitation. Allow me to say at such a short notice, because people have been saying we need 2 months of invitation. This workshop is both timely and very strategic, because Uganda is at a critical point in strength, integrity, transparency, and ambition of its climate action, particularly in the LULUCF, which remains central to our national emissions profile and mitigation pathway. The agriculture, forestry, and other land uses sector contributes over 70% of Uganda's greenhouse gas emissions, primarily driven by deforestation and forest degradation. Yet our forests also represent one of our strongest natural carbon sinks, with significant mitigation potential if they are well managed, restored, and accurately accounted for. The study in question being validated today directly responds to that challenge above. By applying methodologies aligned with the 2019 refinement to the IPCC guidelines, Uganda's moved towards higher tier. You know, colleagues, we have tier 1, 2, and 3 under the IPCC guidelines of 2019. So we're saying that Uganda's move towards higher tier country-specific forest carbon accounting is strengthened with employment of those methodologies, as mentioned. So this is essential for transparency under the enhanced transparency framework and for ensuring that forest-based mitigation outcomes under NDC 3.0 are measurable, reportable, and verifiable. Colleagues, I wish to mention that we are submitting the second NDC, but because of the nomenclature of the submissions that Uganda's had, we call it NDC 3.0. Because you remember the first, what we would call the first one was the intended NDC. Then we also had the updated NDC. And then we had the, and now we're going to do the other third submission, which that's why we're calling NDC 3.0. But in essence, it's actually the second NDC from the one of September 2022. I just wanted to make that very clear. And my colleagues from the DNA were in the meeting there, like my SC mitigation adaptation from climate change department and Derek and the others. I know you agree with me. The study is also highly relevant to Article 6.2 and Article 6.4 of the Paris Agreement. So participation in cooperative approaches and carbon markets requires credible baselines, conservative accounting, and environmental integrity. The findings on emissions trends, removals from restoration and plantation forestry, and net carbon balance provide Uganda with a solid analytical foundation to identify eligible mitigation outcomes and engage confidently in Article 6 transactions. Equally, the study strengthens Uganda's readiness for REDD+ resource-based payments. And while the country has invested in REDD+ readiness through the FREL, the National Forest Monitoring System, and Safeguards Information System, as well as the National REDD+ strategy, sustained access to resource-based finance depends on continuous improvement in data quality and national ownership. The analysis of forest carbon stock losses and gains between 2015 and 2025 provides critical evidence to support future REDD+ submissions and clearly shows where forest loss still outweighs restoration gains.
I guess it's network problems. Yeah, let's just wait a little bit and then we can proceed. Okay, let's, Peter, if he joins back, he will finish, the work. We will now have, before we can have a presentation, on the findings, the study report, we will welcome Robert to take us a presentation on the forestry ambitions, for the NDC that we have. I think he already informed us about the NDC, what those are the actions that the country, sets. And among those actions, we have, forestry. So what are the ambitions that forestry has set? So that's what we present that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, this is a short presentation, like a warm, you call it what? A warm up? To warm us, icy break. So the presentation is about forests and NDC.
Colleagues, sincere apologies. Can you hear me? Sincere apologies. Can you hear me? Hello. Are you able to hear me?
I think, Bob, they are still setting up. For us online, we can hear you, but the people in the room, I think they are still setting up.
Ah, okay. All right. Secretariat, can you hear me now? Hello, hello.
Yes, sir,
Okay, colleagues. Sorry about that. Maybe this is a challenge with being in a lower middle income country. I know that we are going to get to the higher middle income country after next year, as you know, when we are protecting the gains. But that aside, I want to just conclude my opening remarks and sincere apologies. I was just saying that I'm particularly encouraged that this work has been undertaken through a multi-stakeholder process involving government, technical institutions, civil society, and independent consultants and experts. And such collaboration is essential to ensure that our data, assumptions, conclusions, robust, nationally owned, and fit for purpose, both for policy and international reporting purposes. But also it's a demonstration of our technical capabilities in country, usually that is not appropriately tapped. This validation workshop, therefore, serves a critical function because it provides an opportunity to scrutinize the methodologies we have used and assumptions applied, to verify the findings and conclusions, to ensure alignment with national systems, including the National Forest Monitoring System, GHG inventory, and REDD+ MRV frameworks, and also agree on the clear next steps for integrating the results into national reporting, planning, and financing processes. I therefore urge all participants to engage openly, constructively, and technically as we validate the study. But let us ensure that the final report reflects the high standards of scientific rigor, policy relevance, and national credibility. Allow me, on behalf of the Minister of Water and Environment, to commend Emily, WWF Uganda Country Office, the consultant team, and all the members of the Technical Working Group for the effort invested in this vital assignment. Your contribution strengthens Uganda's leadership in forest-based climate action within the region. With those remarks, therefore, it is my singular honor to officially declare this validation workshop open, and I wish you fruitful deliberations for God and my country. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Over to you, moderator.
Thank you so much. Robert, please proceed.
Thank you. Just to go back to where we were. We were on the two definitions of what is a forest and what is a tree. And these definitions, on my extreme left, show you how they have been evolving across different intended purposes. For your information, forest work gained traction after World War II. You know why? Because Germans used too much forests when they are trying to reconstruct themselves. And historically, forests have had one main purpose: timber. That's why whenever you would see anything standing and has so many trees, the main purpose was timber. And I've said a tree, for you now to be qualified, anything you in your garden or what you plant, because you know in Uganda we are planting everything, you must be woody and you must be more than a year. And you must have a single stem. So if you are that, you are anything outside that, then you don't qualify to be a tree. But then around the 1960s, there are aspects which started evolving, aspects of conservation, aspects of mitigation. In 1988, remember that was the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee for the UNFCCC. And then recently in 2010, when we started this issue of buying forest produce from sustainably managed forests, FSCs. What are the policy consequences that things change? When forest definitions are not clear, there are consequences on what you cluster as a forest and even what you call a forest. In Uganda, as all of you know, we don't have a definition of a forest, both in the policy and in the law. That's one of the major missions I think we have had. The policy simply classified what can be categorized as forest. The act simply also went and said what is meant by what? A forest. And these are two key policy documents to guide us. Secondly, when you don't have clarity at national level, for example, this is the working definition which was adopted by the UNFCCC, not the FAO. A forest, for you to have any covering or a particular piece of land having trees, and you want to call it a forest, the minimum area should be at least 0.2 of an acre. If you have been buying land, those are 20 decimals to an hectare. I think all of you know an hectare, those are 2.4 acres. Tree crown cover ranging between 10 to 30%. With the trees, with the potential to reach a minimum height between 2 to 5 meters at maturity. Now, this definition, you see it has ranges, meaning it is what? It's encompassing. But there are countries who have now suffered with working definitions which are predetermined. And they have ended up misclassifying what they call forests and what do not fall within forests. And one of the biggest problems has been on how to treat afforestation and reforestation. Forested land area, after you have already defined the forest, you get me? The only way you can increase already what you have defined is only now through afforestation or natural expansion of land. Previously, on that land which you had not classified as what? As a forest. Now, what do we mean with this policy consequence? That many countries, if you look at their forest estates, they seem to be static. Okay? They are static in a way that over the time, they are only replanting on land which was originally a forest. Let me give you an example. How many of you go through Namambe? Namambe is still a central forest reserve, isn't it? It has never changed. So when you find the people planting in Namambe, they are still planting within the forest area of Uganda. So that is not increasing area covered by forest. Now, these small gymnastics are compressing what you will hear in the study. Lastly, reforestation. Reforestation has become so contentious, or now it is treated, in that this deliberate act of planting trees on land already classified as a forest does not increase the forest area. Now, I know for some of you who have never been in a forest, this is confusing. One of the arguments we have been making, we hear people planting. Where are you planting? You get me? So when you do reforestation in Namamve, you are still within the forest area. Uganda Forest Association. I don't know when the last time you convened us for a capacity building, but you see things are moving so fast. So let's now go where it all started from. This is our Bible when it comes to forest work. And the Bible is the National Biomass Study. I don't know how many of you in this room were born by 1999. But in 1999, efforts were made to give efforts on knowledge and information of the forest cover. And the forest cover was classified across these three. We had the central and local forest reserves. We had the forests which were national parks and wildlife reserves. Then the private and the customary land. That was our original classification. And then we had the tropical high forests, woodlands, and the plantations. Now, when you see of the tropical high forests, the total area was around 924,000 hectares. The woodlands, where many of you have land, was around 3.97 hectares. Plantations, this is where now the problems emerge. Plantations, it was reported, they were at 33,000 hectares, making the total forest estate, the total area under forest, 4.932,000 hectares. And what was the share? Both central and local forest reserves were only accounting for 15%. National parks and the wildlife reserves, or what you call the forest managed by UA, were also almost same as what? Then customary land and private, that is where the largest share was. But one interesting thing we need to note, that woodlands were our largest what? Share of forests. Next. As the consultants will show you, things changed across. Me, I have only shown you of 1990 and tried to get what is happening as of 2023 when you cluster. When you do the net change, you will see that central forest reserves, we have lost almost 113 hectares, 1,000 hectares. Forests under UA have gained. They have increased by almost 90,000 hectares. Private and customary land, they have lost almost 2.3 million hectares. When you do the total loss, remember, this is for Emily, the total loss is around 2.35 million hectares. Now, the Assistant Commissioner said he wants to see this validation informing policy. Next. So why do we talk about forests in climate mitigation? Forests are regulators of our climate. That one, all of you know your basic science. Forests are the simplest. We call them God-given solutions. Natural carbon sinks. You don't need a technology like a hookstone or a carbon capture tool. And they are the most significant repositories of our terrestrial biomass. But when we talk of climate change, tropical forests have also been affected by warming and the increased occurrence of hazards like droughts, accompanied by frequent fires. And what is happening in forests? I told a colleague, the forest is like a human being. They talk, they move, and they communicate. Because their environment has also changed, we have started to notice distributional shifts of forest biomes. We have seen that forests which were originally moist are becoming drier. If you look at most of the forests around the equator, for the last 20 years, many of them have undergone what is now termed as savannization, including even these ones below the equator in Congo. They are now growing savanna patches, which some of you call the desert is what? Is expanding. But now here we are talking about what is happening inside the forests. So from those which were originally moist, evergreen, full of rainfall, now they are becoming drier. We have seen the composition of tree species changing. Pests and diseases. I have a lecturer, he's called Dr. Nakabong Makela. I think now she's associate professor. Her work for the last so many years has been studying forest pests and diseases. The way you get HIV, there is HIV in forests. And we notice that the movement of species from lower to higher elevations is also on the rise. There has not been detailed assessments in the large forests because many of them are getting the human interference so much. But for a number of plantations which are under some form of management, there are publications about pests and diseases, especially for some of you who have been planting pine. You know, when we had the SPGS, we had so many publications on pine diseases. Increased fires, these ones, we know them in the woodlands mostly. When the forests were modeled during the 6th assessment report by Gatti and others, to try to see how will they behave within a 2-degree world or beyond a 2-degree world. This is what was showing. That forests are giving up. Physiologically, tropical trees, which initially were all happy that they used to serve as net sinks, they are becoming net carbon sources. What am I meaning? That they are no longer respecting the usual biology of photosynthesis. They are now respirating more than they synthesize. And I think these are the studies we need to invest in more to understand what is really happening. Because we only planting, but we are not looking at the science of planting. And the most shocking thing is if tropical forests are becoming sources, meaning that instead they are rather doing photosynthesis driven and driving carbon sinks, and they are losing that function. So instead of absorbing carbon dioxide, they are breathing more what? More carbon dioxide. They are respirating just like you. Those are problems. And those are problems where we need to study the soil carbon context, how it relates with water. I think Prof shared the study from, was it China? Where you said that when Chinese planted so many forests, they affected the water table. So there are things we don't pay attention to, but we should start thinking. And our colleagues abroad, for them, they're already seeing problems. Next. Now, having told you of the problems with the forests, for us, we are still looking at them as one of the front runners in helping us with aligning with the Paris Agreement 1.5 degree world. Now, the 1.5 degree world confuses people. It is the world which doesn't belong around 2 degrees. This world which follows here is where we are wondering whether everyone will reach it. This is the current world we are moving in. When we are doing our usual business, you are buying. I was privileged when I was attending the IMF mission. The IMF observed something. It said that we introduced the environment levy, isn't it? To curb Ugandans from buying second what? But the reality is Ugandans are buying more second-hand cars than new cars. And IMF warned the government, he told the government, this policy measure now is no longer meeting its function. Now, we are still buying second what? Hand cars. We are still sitting in a jam of 6 hours, and we are still using rudimentary means. The current policy process, which is the NDC, can take you somewhere within that world. And when you take the unconditional actions of the NDC, you see, they are additional, they take you somewhere. When you take the conditional ones, they will take you towards the promised what? But the promised land, we can take you as far as we can do is the 2 degree world. The 1.5, that one we are still playing. Next. So what did the NDC say? Many people have been asking these questions. How was the mitigation and modeling done for the second NDC or the updated NDC? Mitigation potentials for forestry measures under FORU were estimated based on technical potential. The technical potential came from REDD+ strategy. REDD+ strategy used the sectoral assessments, which informed the estimation of these what? Mitigation potentials. And that's why we are looking at specific measures in the REDD+ strategy. These are some of the measures you can see. The total AFORU potential was around 30.4 million tons by 2030. Forestry only and other land uses accounted for almost 90% of the AFORU. Sustainable fuel wood, the potential was around 16.5 million tons. Large-scale timber production was approximately 10 million tons. Restoration of natural forests. Someone asked me, and I will continue to ask, why is it always small? Why is it having a small mitigation potential? I leave it to you for our people who will show you what they have found. Wetlands and peatlands, 0.4. This was the categorization between unconditional and the conditional based on the total afford. As I conclude, because my work was to warm you up, these are some of the things in addition to what we will see. As we are reviewing the forestry policy and the act, we need to take care of our working definition of the forest. But as we define a forest, using those parameters I told you, canopy, height, what, blah, blah, area, the rules under Article 6 are pushing us. Many of you remember developing countries, especially Africa, did not have forestry projects in CDM. Okay? Do you want to know why? Because you were working within the same area. There was no net addition. You get me? It's like you are drinking soda from the same bottle, but you are sipping. So there is no net addition you are adding on, in addition to other problems. We need to fast track a deployment of mitigation options with high co-benefits and that are cost efficient. For example, what do you lose with continuing to protect natural forests? Nothing. But they continue to sink carbon, isn't it? However, like I've said, we need now to study the interrelation of now our existing natural forests. Are they photosynthesizing or they are just breathing? That is another thing we need to interest ourselves. And I would encourage our partners like UNDP and FAO. These are studies you need to invest in, such that you generate new knowledge. Develop more refined, sustainable potentials for forestry measures. We will see what is coming from the consultant. Then we need to assess the effect of future climate on mitigation potentials, particularly carbon dioxide removal measures, afforestation and reforestation, and soil carbon sequestration. So we think this briefer will introduce you, Madam Chair, to the next big presentation. For more information, we are on Twitter. Now it's called X. You visit that one. This presentation, if you need it, don't wait for share slides. Go on YouTube. It is there. Don't ask for share slides. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We thought more than that, right? More than a next breaker. I hope we have, gotten something, learned something, have a key takeaway, something that we hope we will do, something like that, yeah? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Right now, I'm going to invite the reason why we are here, the person, one of the consultants, I guess Vincent, to come and present to us the draft study report, the findings, so that we can, give in our feedback and see the way forward.
Chair, I wanted to come in a little bit before you bring in the consultant, if it's okay.
That's okay, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Robert, for giving us that history. You know, history is very important, where we have come from, what we have, what we don't, and if we have it, what are the implications, for example, the definition for forests. I wish to report that the REDD+ defined a forest, but I think what you're raising is probably it should be in the policy, if that is adds value. But during our submission of the FREL in 2017-2018, which is a published document on the UNFCCC, we did define a forest. And when you look at it, you'll see that we are considering the 1 hectare. We are considering the 30% canopy cover. We are also considering the 4-meter height. Of course, that definition by UNFCCC takes care of our definition. But we have been arguing over the years, and you recall in one of our REDD+ meetings, we've been arguing over the years that probably we need to redefine our forest, because leaving it at 1 hectare, for example, may have implications. But taking it to below 1 hectare may also have implications, both to the negative and probably to the positive. So we need to really analyze why, or if we actually need to redefine a forest, given our context in the country. So I think, to me, we need to, as we go for all that, we need to, and we usually are supposed to subject it to our technical teams and evaluation and things like that, based on evidence of data. So I just want us to reflect on that as we look into pushing for a definition or a redefinition of a forest. So we have a working definition for that we have been using for REDD+. And you know very well that REDD+ has been the core in the provision of forestry data for some time now. But of course, making sure that we harmonize and define forest better is a wonderful proposal. And I'm looking forward to such a discussion, by the way. You know, I'll be very much interested in understanding the do's and the don'ts and the pros and the cons of redefining our forest at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope I'm audible now. Once again, I'm Vincent Birungi. I led the team that did this assignment. I suppose now, as of now, you might have some assumptions to the study, even though you didn't do it, because from the presentation Robert gave, you might feel something about the national data. If you have been forward thinking, with the running mind and very inquisitive. But as they cast the presentation, I may not delve into a lot the background of the study, but one key point is one figured partly is the refinement to the 2006 IPCC guidelines, greenhouse gas emission accounting. And like Robert still noted, we have been either over or underreported by global databases. And it is because they, I don't know what to use the word scavenge, but they get data wherever they get it. That is one of the challenges, by the way, for the country. So we find that we are either reported having high emissions or low emissions, or even when it comes to the removals, we are kind of affected by those reportings. So we believe that the findings of this study will set pace for institutional alignment, and people with data, I believe some are here, whoever has national data, or whichever data you have that contributes to the national accounting, please. Of course, it goes back to the ministry
to support this. Yes, okay. Yeah, we were a team of 4. I had my colleague Sam Kisa. I had Junior Omani and Catherine Atkunda. Yes, so given the team, we had to do a quick something of the country. We basically chose Midwestern Uganda, basically because of the history of degradation. We looked at the Dongo Goma landscape and the woodlands of Nakasongola, Ruero, up to Kaluma. So that was our field sampling area where we needed to have a picture of what it is in terms of encroachment, degradation, or deforestation. But first, let's first look at let's first look at some of the definitions to set place for you. The key words here I wanted to look at is deforestation and degradation. Carbon dynamics will basically look at changes over time, but deforestation, we used the definition of the frame. We're looking at conversion of land from forest cover to non-forest cover. That is deforestation. We didn't have any modification. And as we shall look at the assumptions later, we ended up capitalizing on deforestation because of the limitations we had to see. I hope there we're together. Just a quick one. As a country, we lack methodologies and data to quantify forest degradation. So keep that in mind as we shall move ahead. Then emissions and activity that we do that affect forest cover triggers emissions. And now, with degradation, we look at the qualitative, I can say transition of forest cover. We don't see complete transition, but one thing I want you to know, everyone in the room and online, if you happen to have a transition from a plantation, let me use the most liked one, from a tropical high forest to a plantation, either broadleaf, pine, or eucalyptus, it is degradation. Just keep that.
Could you put it in presentation mode, please? Presentation mode.
Commissioner, is it clear now?
It's not in presentation.
It's not in the presentation mode, but also the slides were not moving, even in that other mode.
Just a second, sorry. Yes. Yeah.
Is it?
No. Duplicate.
Is it okay now, sir?
It's okay. Commissioner, is it okay now? Yes, I think. Okay.
It is okay.
Yes.
It is okay.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. So I think I've given the background and a few definitions. Next. Yes, these are the figures still, some of them were picked or were taught by Robert. This is our industry target by 2030. But of course, from the second report, the second biennial report, we see a fall contributing 76%, while the change in land cover or land use contributed 60%. Continue. So basically, what was the objective of the assignment? One, we were tasked to review the methodologies, basically identifying identifying existing and the new approaches for estimating emissions from forest degradation and deforestation and land cover and forestry. Then we need to quantify the carbon stocks, basically looking at the gains and losses for the past 8 years. From the inception, team who were at Africana, we were going up to 2025, but under rigorous assessment and review, we realized that we were falling short of data for 2025. So we had to go with the data available. Has been reported out. So when I say out, we are part of the out, okay? Because we see media. At the end of the day, when someone looks at this figure, 2023, they should be able to say, but the state of environment said something different. Did you consider it? Now we're here. Then we also needed to look at the emissions, the removals from these activities, but then also assess the mitigation potential of forests. So we basically looked at the forest management practices and what they could contribute. So we projected for the next 15 years from today. When I say today, I mean 2025. Okay, next. So here are the few assumptions. The assumptions are many, but I had to pick a few patterns for you. Tier 1 and 2 approaches have been adopted in this study. Tier 1, we find that we use a lot of default values in our assessment, not only for this study, but also as a country. We can't run out from it because that's what we have as a country. Why? Because we run short of data. That's why we are pushed to Tier 1. The Tier 2, as a country, we have the biomass expansion and removal factors. Here we commend NFA and the team that have really done some tremendous work. So this explains the Tier 2. Then carbon removals. For the study, we looked at the transitions that happened. So for the emissions we studied, we looked at the transitions from, we shall see later, we categorized them from 2015, 2017, by 17, 19, like that. So the same changes, we looked at the gains that were within that study period. That's why we computed the carbon removals. So for the carbon removals, we later computed the net balance, and as we shall see later, we shall see the appalling result. Then
The presentation I will take.
The team online, can you see the presentation? Okay, I will show so. Not yet.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can, but it is not in the presentation mode, but we can see what you have. Yes.
Okay, in the interest of time, let's be moving this loads. I was on the removal factors because we were tasked to look at the emissions and removals. So, yes, we're still here. Now, on the removal factors, we needed to come up with the removal factor to understand how much we are able to remove based on our management practices. Okay, so it is this that we use to get the mitigation potential later on. So removal factors were adopted from Roy and the team. These guys looked at their study, basically modeled the land-based mitigation measures from 2020 to 2050 for all countries. Uganda was included. So it is from there that we picked these factors. For confidence, this study has also been used by IPCC Working Group 3 that looks at mitigation, climate change mitigation. So the rate of forest cover for the projected years is assumed constant. It's assumed constant. These are the constants we're taking. Okay, so for the management practices and their areas for projection, we picked these figures from the national documents that have been provided or that are online. And I think that's what the country is using. For afforestation and reforestation, we looked at NDP4. So the target for the NDP4 is 5,000 hectares per year. And then according to IFPA, it looks at sustainable forest management. Per year, it gives 33,775 hectares. And then for restoration, it's kind of small figure, 4,750. And we project, like we said, up to for the next 15 years. So the study assumes that what is being restored is still unknown. And this I will leave it to you. Along the way, you will understand why this assumption is there. But not to remain in doubt is that for whatever activity going on in the country, we really lack a clear, solid MRV, that is measuring, reporting, and verification for our activities that are going on in different localized areas. So here I give a simple, they may not be clear to you, but like Robert said, you'll find this presentation on YouTube. So over time, take time to understand where the entire system comes from and what it means. But largely, as a recommendation, we shall see later that we try to push ourselves to tier 2 and 3. Why? Of course, it comes with a cost implication, which we didn't want to put in the report for scaring readers and policymakers, but it can be attached on the site. Largely, we see that tier 1 requires actually no much data, no new data required. But generally, when we talk to tier 2, we see that we have our 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 forest biomass information being captured by the mandated institution. But then also for degradation, we apply the loss and gain, the gain and loss approach to understand how we have had emissions increasing over time, over a year. So one of the first objective looked at the methodologies. So in the methodologies, there are key updates that affected Uganda in small ways or bigger ways is the ratio, getting the below ground biomass. Currently, or previously, we have been using a 24% conversion, or 24% of above ground you get below ground biomass. There was a change to 23.2%. That's the update that affected us, our data and the computations needed. But then also, we find that it continues to urge member countries to adopt their 2 and 3 approaches to estimation of its emissions, because it improves accuracy and transparency. But then, in terms of improving accuracy, we look at the detection of degradation. Now, this is the issue I was talking about earlier. As a country, we really lack this, and one of the recommendations you will find in the report, once it publishes, you'll find that I talk of degradation proxies. As a country, we don't have data with regards to selective logging or forest logging. Just think about it. You are seeing logging happening everywhere. If you're going to Boima, you'll see that people that have been harvesting all over people's plantations. Okay, so that data is not captured, and it is needed. So when we stand in front of people and tell them that we are putting forest degradation and deforestation, always remember that we run short of forest degradation data. Selective harvesting, fires, pests and diseases, all that data needs to be tracked. And that is one of the recommendations we find in the new approaches. Next. Yes, then now in terms of the carbon, we needed to first understand the classification we have, and the study adopted what is currently used or reported. So the country is classifying forest cover into 5 classes. We're looking at the tropical high forest well stocked. These are assumed to have no less high encroachment, and by the management system, they claim it remains well stocked. Examples of Dongo, examples of Kalizu and Chui, among others. Go to the mountains, Benzori, Elgon. Then we have the tropical high forest low stocked. Now these are the severely degraded. I don't know if Professor Justin is here. She used to tell us that Mavira forest is not well stocked. Actually, she calls it a regenerating forest. So I push it here as a degraded forest. But the well-known, for example, where we visited, we have the Goma Forest Reserve. We have the Kagombe that has had the history of transitions. And we see from the analysis, at least localized analysis, we saw the tremendous work being done by many agencies. One remaining key is WWF. We really see the works. And then woodlands. Now this here will come into the first definition, but it is covered. You know, at some point we are always asked to give averages or ranges from 2 meters to 5 meters so that you find your definition covered. And then the plantations. So plantations, like we talked of the computations, degradation. So later on, we're going to see that in our computation of emissions, we dropped plantations. Why? Because one finding we found, like say in the Kikonda, was that they had harvested of the 4 patches that were broad-leaved, they had harvested 1, and they had replanted it with coniferous. Okay, so literally that is degradation, and we couldn't take it to be deforestation. I hope now we're getting the assumption. Next. Yes, so this is the color map we have, and it looks finer, but the transitions were there, and we really had forest loss. I will allow me to leave the map and we'll go to the graph. So we had to pull out this graph for you. Not that it was not that the study considered from 1990 to 2023, but for you to understand where we're coming from and probably where we are going. You know, when people stand and tell you that we need to increase our forest cover to the 1990 days, meaning one of the targets is actually to hit 24%. Okay, meaning it is like times 2 of the forest cover currently. But now we see that forest cover's increment was largely contributed by plantations. That is the major finding we can report with regards to the forest cover trends. But we see that there was a spike in terms of, first of all, it plummeted. You know, always remember that we have lost forest cover by, I would say, by 2-fold to the current state of 12.6%. Next. So, in terms of the computations, like I talked of the Tier 2, where they push us to, or they acknowledge the use of our national coefficients. So this information is online, it's accessible by everyone. I found it on the website of FAO under national reporting, so you can always check it out. We have the National Forest Inventory Report published in 2019, and it has data updated up to 2016. So these are the biomass factors. So biomass factors were used to compute the standing biomass for the country. And then the emission factors were used to understand the rate at which we lose carbon, okay, from our forests. I also wish to state that the gas considered is carbon dioxide. We didn't look at any other gases. So keep that in mind. So maybe before, this is down because, no, it is not. It was for the biomass. It's okay, continue. So, you will forgive me, I left out a graph, a table that looks at the carbon removals based on the transitions, because for the next chart, you're going to see the emissions. But the standing carbon as of today for the country is this. We have 873 million tons of carbon across our forest types. However, the computation we adopted is we looked at the current reporting, especially for the countries that are really ahead of Uganda, for example, Guyana. But we looked at the computation as we go to the area. Actually, we first go to the above ground carbon across classes, plus the below ground carbon across classes, summed it up, and then multiplied it by the area of forest cover. Okay, then we'll go to the carbon. So in terms of the conversion, we look at the rate at which carbon is sequestered. So that's why I don't want to go into the physics there, the 44/12 and all that computation. But the simple formula is getting this total volume of carbon is simply the summation of above ground carbon plus below ground carbon times the area to get the total carbon we have in a given particular year. So this is how it changed across. You can see the drop and the rise. You know, if you go back to the first cover, you'll see the graph. Yes, just back a little bit. Back. Yes. So you see 2019, there was a rise in forest cover. And that ties with the carbon we are seeing down there. This is 13. So here at 2019, we have something like 928 million tons at 13% forest cover. And then as the, no, it's okay. As forest cover is recovering, we are seeing here, we are seeing 12.6%, and it is 873. Basically, this is total carbon we have for the country.
So I don't know if the model. Okay. So just for that.
Yes.
Does that also include plantations or not?
Oh, this.
No, the previous one.
Yes. You mean the car?
The next step.
Yeah, this one. It includes all. Yes. That is carbon now, based on our forest carbon classification. Okay, all the 5 classes. Yes, next. Yes, now when it comes to emissions, like we said, we looked at, we did the trends analysis, and we looked at a 3-year understanding of our changes, or the emission changes or dynamics, the carbon dynamics across the study period. We needed you to look at this first before we bring you to this, because you know, at some point you might feel, or practitioners, we might call them partners, you might feel that your activities are not really contributing anything, but actually some contribution is there. However, we need to understand that emissions are on the rise. For example, when you look at this period where we had the reporting, when I say reporting, I mean we had about, we found 7.6 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. This was averaging to 5.1 million tons annually. So, but when you come to, okay, basically when you look through here, okay, there was some little effort, but it was really still outweighed. And at the end of the day, we found that emissions were on the rise. Okay, though with one funny observation is that when we had the high forest cover, for example, in 2019, okay, the emissions were around 98 million. Let me give that figure. But then when we came to 2021, the emissions were even higher, even though the forest cover had, actually that's when we saw a rise again. You see, from 13, then there was a drop, and then a rise. Now, okay, yes, Commissioner.
Yes, thank you very much. I think it's a great way I'm seeing you manage the methodology, I mean, the way you picked this information and analyzed it. But I have a bit of a question on the removal efficiencies. Did you maintain 90% or you used another removal efficiency? Because that is very useful for me to appreciate some of the things you're talking about here. And then I know that you are almost trying to mix both the emission, I mean, you're not almost, you are the emissions and removals. And so the issue of emission factors comes into play here. And I'm just wondering, and you're saying you have included plantations and, below ground biodiversity, I mean, carbon. Can you talk a little bit into emission factors that you employed to determine these other emissions and, for your study? Thank you. Over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. With emission factors, we did a transition assessment where we looked at the changes from the covers, non-forest. That is now pure deforestation. And that's how we came to, so of the area we had times emission factors, we go to these emissions. That's how the formula is, simple. So to get emissions, we look at emission factors times the transition area, the lost area of forest, okay? To
How did you determine the emission factors that you employed?
Even
if you're talking about transition approach, but the transition approach has some assumptions. Did you make any assumptions to that effect, please?
No, we didn't determine emission factors. We adopted what is available by the National Inventory Report.
Okay, all right. Okay, maybe. Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So, like I said, so allow me just to give you this figure that for the study period, for the eight-year study period, we found out that we had lost about, or we had emitted about 134.6 million tons. This is a sharp increase in emissions, no matter the mitigation efforts we are having across the country. And from the next graph, I mean from the next chart, this gives you the computation. Like I said, I did include the table for the removals. The removals still were computed based on the way emissions have been presented. So we found out that from the transitions, for example, when I say transitions here now, compute the removals for the study period, not for the projection. I need to be quoted well. For the study period between 2015 to 2023, the area that moved from non-forest to forest, okay, for which now in terms of removals, by the way, here we'll come back to considering also plantations, okay, because we are looking at now from non-forest to forest, whether it's plantation or tropical high forest. So we found that they contributed to about 32.7 million tons. So a simple loss and gain analysis gave us a net loss of about, if we divide this by 8, it gives us about 16 point, is it 16? Okay, generally we had the net loss. Okay, yeah, simply divide this by 8, you get yes. So that is that's how much we could lose by year. So we see that these are the emissions, total emissions, like we saw from the previous table, and then these are the total removals for the study period. Next. Yes.
I think I have a problem with this statement. Why are we saying that the forest sector remains a net carbon source specifically?
It remains a net carbon source because of the now for this we could take it to the challenge we have in terms of understanding the degradation. Okay, and that's why we say that the degradations are not practical. So because of those leakages, we continue to consider source, of emissions, even though we have some gains in terms of restoration activities happening around. Also from the change analysis, we found that there was some transition, but it was insignificant. Okay? Yeah.
Yes. I could put it in another language if it is okay. Assume it is a business, and the way he has explained to us, over the first 7 years, we lost 134 million shillings, but we only managed to make 32 million. So if you compare over the 7 years, we are still losing money. So we are still losing carbon to the atmosphere from the forest. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, that's the source. Okay, next. Now here we quickly did a comparison from the FERIL to the current data we have, and we can see that of course the FERIL did call them plantations, right? Plantations to non-forest. Now this is the transition I was talking about, okay, in terms of degradation, deforestation. Anything that changes to that we consider it deforestation. And we realized that per year the FREL had about 8.2 million tons. And we can see that the current study finds that emissions rose by twofold. Okay, this is the 16. This is the division I was talking about. 134.6 million tons divided by the study period, 8 years. Okay, so this is what the country has currently in the FREL and the current data.
So that's in this case, emissions, what does it mean?
Okay, the current study.
No, you will have to say that.
I know for purpose of presentation, we have to give this, but it doesn't mean that Emily has emissions.
I'm saying that's why I'm saying it.
Yes.
Because this is we do it for this study.
Yes.
They confuse people. They call them Emily emissions. Somebody may think that maybe there's a code called Emily. Which is that maybe just need to let me so that it's just for purpose of.
No, we shall, in terms of comparison and the report, it is written in the council. Okay. Yes.
Maybe since Emily is in Uganda and the Emily can be also managed or guided by the ministry to be the current state of missions in Uganda.
We shall leave it for that. Yeah, it's a good suggestion. Yes. Okay, next one. Yes, so now in terms of mitigation potential, so like we talked of the removal factors, and one thing is IPCC doesn't recommend or doesn't give any default removal factors. Why? Because countries have different management scenarios. They even not attempt to lump up the factors in terms of or in terms of vegetation or climate. Like say you hear tropical, moist, dry, what. So they leave it to countries because this is an advanced stage in the data system where now we try to look at the tier 3. So these removal factors were adopted from Roy, which I hinted on in the assumptions. So they modeled, I would say, the world. And luckily, Uganda is included in their modeling. And they also have some areas when it comes to sustainable forest management. I believe most of you are not confused by sustainable forest management, protection, and conservation. Those are funny terms which mean a lot in terms of policy, but also efforts that happen. Actually, one simple definition I got from my BAME classes those days is conservation is some form of use. So sustainable brings the issue of the use, conservation. But anything to do with protection, it means custodial management. You watch the forest, no entering to do anything there. And I think it is hard to even imagine in Uganda, where we are really constrained by resources, but also the population being reliant on the natural resources for their fuel. So at some point, we have some collaborative forest management around our forest reserves, but we still hit the objective of sustainable forest management because when communities really understand the value of this forest, we hit our target. And I believe that's where IFPA comes in with this. So one of the assumptions we gave to come up with this scenario is we assume the area is the same, not throughout the management practices. First, the mitigation potential is assessed and predicted based on the management practices. So there are 4 management practices. However, we found that Uganda had not attempted to think about avoided degradation. Okay, that's why we left it out. And we didn't want to concoct a figure for you or for the country ministry, please. We didn't want to give a figure and then you start saying, but who came up with this target, which is not even achievable. Even if it was just 5,000 hectares, it would have been big if at the end of the day, an M&E officer asks about such an area included in such a study, and someone will be like, but how did the consultant come up with such a figure? So for defense and the attribution, this information is got from the national targets. We looked at the NFA strategic plan. We also looked at the IFPA, and then also the NDP4. So we looked at those documents and collected. We went with the highest. Okay? Who doesn't want to go for the highest? So for restoration, we went to IFPA. Restoration and sustainable forest management. These were gotten from IFPA. The strategic plan had a small area for restoration. The strategic plan of NFA. So we had to go with what IFPA was having and sustainable forest management. But then when we went to afforestation, still the NDP4 was having a higher figure of 5,000 hectares per year. That is a good target for the country. And that's what we adopted. So, this is, we looked at a 5, okay, in 5 years. So for every 5 years, we would give, we'll get an area. So 4750 times 5, you get this, times 5, you get, okay? And that's how we came up to these totals. And then in terms of removal factors, these were constants we got from the study. And we, like I said, we adopted these because as we tried to dig deeper into literature, we found that the working group on mitigation had also adopted it. So we found it confident to include it in the study. And so they gave us these computations, and here we can. So the removal factors, by the way, I did just put the units here. This is in terms of hectare, okay? And this is in terms of carbon.
How do you avoid the double count?
How?
Why do you, when you look at the from the NDP?
Yes.
And also the current NDP, that's NDP for also.
Yes.
But NDP, when it was being crafted, also consulted if was it was relevant.
Okay.
And if that is also, so how did you try to
Yes,
avoid that?
that's the comparison I'm talking about. Okay, we basically looked at the documents in black and white. IFPA, NDP, we just went with the highest figure. So if NDP consulted IFPA, we went with the NDP's figure. Okay.
Because logically, IFPA is a long-term program.
Yes.
And that's a program. But the NDP is actually the plan which government has put forward. So that's why I was asking you the question. Because you might over or double counting for the same effort. Because what usually happens is that when people are making commitment for NDC, I mean for NDPs, we're also looking into what program do we have. Because not everything is going to be funded by government. In the NDP, just as an example. So the aspect of alignment, what's in NDP is just providing a confirmation, but behind the NDP, the programs or sectors are also looking at what plans are underway to ensure that whatever they are putting in the National Development Plan actually being implemented. I think there we need to be really careful when we are trying to put such kind of things.
Okay, I think, well, I would say I'm covered by the assumption. Okay, yes, because if I assume whether the country, I would say if the country overhit the target, it would still be okay than being underreported. Okay, yes. And so, okay, before I move, I don't know if the figure is very well, but when Robert presented something to do with 20, when we look at the NDC, the current NDC, it gives a target of about 30.4. Okay, so from the current study, we see that we might achieve that by 2035, where we are slightly above by 0.1. Okay, so then at the end of the day, in 2040, we enter into.
So if that is the assumption that we will achieve that by 2030, Uganda is doing version 3 of the NDC with the target that you are presuming that it might be achieved by 2030. So does the recommendation means that we maintain the same intervention, the same tactics, the forestry in the new NDC which is being
it would depend on the team. I would say to me it would still be okay, because at the end of the day we see it's a small difference to hit a target. But it is not easy.
So there's a likelihood that the ambition of the forest is going to remain the same.
I don't want to assume. So.
But this is what is communicated.
Thank you. I wanted to assume that they didn't actually consider our presence in the ABC.
Yes, we did.
And therefore we will need completely different thinking. We are only going to borrow some of their findings to enrich, but they did not directly follow our targets in the ABC. What if we compare?
I thought that my work has been made.
Okay.
Someone has.
Oh, someone online?
Brad.
Brad?
Well, thank you so much. I hope I'm audible enough. Thanks for the presentation so far. I might have to maybe take us back a bit. The connectivity wasn't on my side really, but maybe some of the questions were answered already. But we'll probably start with your sources. You already mentioned that the emission factors, the source was the National Biomass Report. You talked of the strategic plan for NFA, IFPA, and NDP4. But then I wanted to ask about the source of I don't know if you looked at the statistics that we have for the land cover maps that we've already produced at the National Forestry Authority. If you borrowed some of those statistics to enrich your work. Then number two, IFPA in particular is very interested in working. Okay, there are so many areas that IFPA is focusing on, but when you talked of restoration earlier and reforestation, I brought in the restoration element that IFPA is looking at versus enrichment and how these are actually going to affect the forest area on one side or forest cover on the other side. So is there an increment in your projections when it comes to restoration under IFPA and enrichment? Is there any sort of change that it's going to bring up once that description is clearly brought out? I think generally that's it. But following up on the first question I asked, if you are borrowing statistics from NFA or looking at them in any way, I feel like it's important to maintain consistency because NFA looks at the description of a forest as per what the Assistant Commissioner said. And if you're looking at the 2 meters, 0.05 hectares, I think there's going to be a very big difference in the projections that NFA has and what we've been holding as what might be a fact in the future. Thank you.
From the biomass factors, we didn't look in any other document apart from reports published by NFA. That is the 2019 Forest Inventory Report. And I think it was attached, it was part of the attachment to file reporting. And then in terms of the forest definition, we actually don't modify. We go with what has been adopted. And then in terms of the projections, yes, like we talked of, we don't want to assume, or we don't want to say that it doesn't mean that we didn't see the national data currently, but I would say look at this study as I don't want to say novel, but bringing out something for you to look at. We're not saying we should study or not study, okay? But we're saying what could be missing and what could be reported. But then also in terms of adoption, we are not saying that we didn't use, or we didn't say at any point in time that we redefined the forest classes. Okay, we basically adopted as they are. Then do we look at the national data? Yes, we did. And that's the forest cover. So the only changes we had are the computations that came in based on the formulas, based on the factors we adopted. That's the only change that comes with this report. Yes? Excuse me. Can you allow me to finish? I left with about 3 slides or 3-4. Okay. Next. Yeah. So this is a quick summary of what we project in terms of the mitigation potential. Like I said, we dropped, reduced, or avoided degradation because as a country there was no attempt to give an area when it comes to avoided degradation. But also because of lack of data in terms of logging, fires, and all that. Next. So in terms of our recommendations seem summative here, but they are detailed in the report. I'm very sure when you look at them, you will word by word. But one key finding we found from the analysis of the methodologies is the refinement wishes or urges the member countries to really shift to Tier 2 and 3. One of the strides Uganda has made is having these biomass and emission factors. However, where we run short of the emission factors is when it comes to degradation. Countries like Guyana, they have emission factors for whatever you can think of that could affect forest cover, but it doesn't transition maybe to non-forest. For example, if you have someone harvesting, they could report in terms of their volume, and then we compute it in a national system to report at least emissions happening in a given plantation. So that is an advancement in terms of certification, and then also in terms of the spatially existing data or that is happening across. But then also in terms of remote sensing, with remote sensing, currently for people who are more into technology, we have LiDAR technology. So for LiDAR, the sensors actually can detect the forest health, the forest cover, the forest height, and the understory. Okay, so if you have such data, you can improve your biomass computations. But then also in terms of the field plots, when looking to the National Inventory Report, I'm putting a disclaimer. People from FSSD don't castigate me, and I'm not pinning you. But the number of plots we have on private lands remain few across the country that are permanent in terms of monitoring. Okay, so that still is a push to Tier 3. You know, this is kind of broad for all the 3, but these are communicated to the other objectives of the study. So remote sensing generally improves the reporting, but also in terms of the quality and availability of data. You see, when we're launching these satellites, we need to be communicating to such things beyond early warning systems. Then, when we talk about the MRV platform, there's something I point out in the report. Our data as a country is in silos. People who have data don't even want to release it. Actually, people have data. This is a fact. But we don't know who has the data. I'm not saying all the data, but this, in one way or the other, people have data. But I can assure you, others have it because they don't, and they don't want to release it. Others have it, but they don't know how to report it. Okay? Yes, activities are happening. For example, when you look at the restoration works going on, when you sit down to look at the many partners happening around, NGOs, private companies. By the way, of recent, many companies are talking about sustainability. So when you look at sustainability among those corporate companies, ask them about their data. They have. They are saying they are restoring a given area, but it is not tagged into the national system. Okay. So here, sorry, this is a people. We're saying decentralize the forest data. I would suppose that FSSD is the final clearinghouse, okay, for the national data. So if you report data for Kampala, you're reporting for Kampala alone. So don't brag that you're reporting for the whole country, okay? But that shows you that we have data in the country. So if someone wants to project to extrapolate to the whole country, they should be able to come to the ministry, FSSD. But in the first instance, we are saying, do we have this data in the local authorities? Okay, so that comes with improving their capacity in terms of reporting. You have to train them, they have to be trained. So this alone improves transparency in our data as a country. So all that comes into coming up with a standalone national forestry, national inventory report that is really comprehensive and I would say replicable in its own way. That if someone is able to report from the district, because some efforts happen, actually not all efforts happen in the localized way, but how best can we tag them to the national reporting? That comes to the platform we're talking about. And then lastly, we realize that these targets, currently the NDC looks at the restoration targets and AR. However, I don't know if you have taken time to look at it deeply with a keen eye, not being political. You see, smallholder farmers, smallholders are not considered. I don't know if you have ever thought about it, but people are planting trees all over. There is something I talked of at some point during the inception about the companies we are having. How do we have them contribute to the NDC? I talked of the plywood companies across the country. So this brings me to the discussion of value chain assessment and understanding. Many companies are coming and we're having this target set up. So we need to include them. And for any permit being issued, they should have management plans. Okay, so with management plans, they should be able to contribute to the targets, and this feeds into our mitigation potential when it comes to reporting. And I think with that, allow me give a vote of thanks to the team that you saw earlier. Special shouts out to the field teams that supported us during our field visits. WWF office in Kagadi, Mr. Teko and the team, it was really valuable. NFA Kagadi office, they gave us a tour around Kagombe landscape, and we were aware of the efforts being done, and then Udongo and the Kiponda area, but then also the financial support and everything for the administrative management. Last one. So that photo is Kagombe. You see, this area is. We normally say in forestry that when you move to a forest and you find it thick, it means it is either generating or a young forest. So this is a sign of disturbance, but also with hope, a sign of recovery. So in the background is a transitioning forest to somewhat non-disturbed. Okay, but at least there's some transition. So these are the livelihood options that are happening in the area. Otherwise, thank you so much. We can have our questions.
Can we open up that? Be brief, precise, because that we can become time. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, our presenter. I really applaud your team for having come up with this. And coming up with these figures and being able to defend them, we always not an ordinary man's business. We really applaud you for that. I just have 2 issues. I think my brother has more issues. Mine, I'm just saying that in the number of statements, we are saying forest deforestation and degradation. I would suggest we say deforestation and forest degradation. But I stand to be warned. Then for readability purposes, I request that when we're talking about carbon dioxide sequestration, let's maintain the standard unit. If you're talking about metric tons, let it be that. If you're talking about million tons or tons equivalent, because this has an implication on the figures. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the very good presentation. You talked about Goma Forest, and I'm personally an interested party. When you went on the ground, what you find beyond what you did on the desk? Because you said the Odongo team, the team visit Goma Forest because they are part of the team that is trying to fight for its life. And latest, when we went there, we met the full force of the military. We were dispersed. I don't know how we were able to make it there. And when the president went there recently, he was asking who gave an order, because he saw sugarcane is flourishing, and he was wondering who would have given the order to cut down the forest. And to that effect, I would like to report that the certificate of environmental impact assessment the developer had received that when it was given on 14th of August 2020 was a 5-year certificate. So it means that now 14th of August 2025 it expired. So any work that is being done in that area does not have certification from the current NEMA leadership. Of course, we all must remember that under 2020 NEMA was under another executive director, and may he so rest in eternal peace, Dr. Good. But right now, Kankwasa is very far on ensuring that we restore our forest. So I would like to know from you, the team, what you found on the ground, so that we can build on that to see that we, because NEMA issued a restoration order, that all those degraded areas should be restored. So I would like to know whether some work is going on or the order was ignored. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentations. I was sitting here and I kept saying, yeah, these figures, because to me, sorry, I'm a lawyer by profession, not too much about forest, but at least I did environmental law. I really wonder whether what we're talking about, that is why you say speculation, I don't see it on ground. Like he's saying about Bugoma Forest. The other day, my husband comes from Nepal, and along the way, Nakasongula used to be really. Right now, when you pass there, I don't know whether it is in 211C or I really don't know. I don't know what the officers in NFA are doing and where we actually getting all these figures. Please elaborate for me some more where they come from. Thank you.
Okay, we have evening tea and who are working tea as respond to questions. Is that okay? Yeah, so the tea, just take a corridor, you'll find
Thank
Thank you so much for the presentation. Me, I would maybe want to supplement and maybe make some affirmations in some of your presentation. In 2023, we initiated a program with Uganda Wildlife Research and Training Institute concerning tree species and carbon emissions or carbon absorption. It is when the statistical data about to an increasing offset or an increasing emission from most of our forest cover was skyrocketing, especially like in 2023, I wouldn't wonder, because there are some findings that certain tree species, like how Mr. Robert talked it in the beginning, certain tree species do emit actually more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Given that the terrain you are planted onto them, some tree species are as a result of genetic editing or gene editing. So even maybe the relief. So I think there was a point when there was a time when they were launching the Roots campaign, and I gave in that issue that most of us, especially when it comes to carbon markets, people are running so much in tree planting. But there is a need to first make a very deep assessment on the tree species you're going to plant, provided in a specific areas. This one is going to work so much in trying to reduce this kind of emission, especially from the forest sector. Thank you.
Okay.
We have how much you can respond.
Okay, let me first respond this, please, but there are a few. But it's okay. Okay, yes, it is actually deforestation and forest degradation. Okay, that's the best way to write it. And also harmonizing the units. Yes, it is captured. Yes, actually, when you follow, it will depend on Emily and the team. The beauty is you are part of the team. You will get the tables. Okay, so you look through how those conversions come in, and the units will follow through. Access to Bugoma. That question I wanted someone from NFA to respond, because the issues of Bugoma are more of the newer issues. That's why you have those certificates cancelled. But
maybe I can just chip in a little bit to bring some of our colleagues on board with regards to the Bugoma scenario. Going back to the presentation, it's very true that we are losing natural forest, woodland, tropical forest, and tropical forest low stock. But what you need to bear in mind is that the country is also planting trees. So when we are reporting forest cover, generally, there are areas where we indicate the forest cover increase. Now, the issue of what is happening on ground, there are many hotspots in the country which are on fires. And one of them is Bugoma, of course, in the west, where we know that part of the area has been destroyed. But also there are restoration efforts that may not yield results today. And as we talk, it's now 50-50 between conservationists and the people who invested in Bugoma. These days, they are not as hard as they were those days, because they know that they are illegal and there are many circumstances surrounding the forest. I was there 2 weeks ago. We were also there when we went to the field, and we were able to see the degraded area, because that was our main area of interest. With regards to the intervention, maybe we need to take in interest. But Wema Sugar themselves are also saying that they are restoring the riverbank. I myself went there and saw they had planted the trees in some few areas, though it's not significant compared to the area that we have lost. So still, for the lawyer, yes, we are losing forest cover, but the country is also planting. And these are some of the issues that this study is going to address. as conservationists, CCD, Ministry of Water and Environment, NFA, all the CSOs, we now need to capitalize on this report and ask for more funds. And if possible, my colleague Semambo, we don't need to be talking about restoring 5,000 hectares in the country. We need to start talking about 200,000 hectares, 500,000 hectares, because the truth is, if we don't protect the forests that we are bleeding as a country. So for colleagues, we need to understand that we are increasing forest cover more or less in plantations. Then what we are left is mostly in protected areas. What is outside protected areas? For example, if you go to other parts of the country, like the northern part of the country, we have some woodlands. But these woodlands are the charcoal we are using here in Kampala. So it's just upon all of us now to wake up and adjust our planning with regards to a study like this one. I think I've answered the questions.
Yes, on the, I wanted to also add something on the lawyers' part. Is you say, had we had some information on degradation, I would have given you something about Nakasongo that you say. Yes, but you see, of course, being as we help, that is Central Forest Reserve somehow, okay? So the increase in the plantations across board, okay? Largely, we are seeing plantation forests in Central Forest Reserve that are degraded, okay? Now, we are seeing investing there. That's why I'm saying there's a change. But at some point, we have seen some recovery. They are planting, okay? So, as part of this study, one of the shortfall is that data for the transition, maybe from eucalyptus to plain, okay? It will give you confidence that actually you're not losing, even though we have some changes. You understand? Yes. That's so the figures are real and actual. Yeah. There are questions.
Maybe there's one unanswered question with regards to the emission-specific tree species. That is where we now go to the tier 3. And it is a very interesting topic that we can well look at. But thanks for the compliment.
Something that may sound to be almost but from the gut or like such a thing. Because we have been doing this one across the country. And maybe once that report is out, it can also be so much helpful. Because at the end of it, we shall keep planting more trees, but then we shall keep registering and increase in special areas.
Thank you. Chair, I want to thank the team, the consultants, and I want to thank you particularly for passing through this forum. You will allow the old man to say, and then it comes to you. Okay. So I wanted to touch on what he has just mentioned and stay a little bit longer on the terms of the work we were doing. So I wanted to, the slide which has the forest practice, and to request my team leader, FSSD, that when we are defining our sustainable forest management, we listed the principles of sustainable forest management, and it has about 10 of them. So when a person picks a single line and calls the sustainable forest management, and you don't oppose her or him, I lose the whole potential associated with the other 9 activities associated with sustainable forest management. So there are aspects which are non-forest, but they are part of sustainable forest management, but there are several which are actual forest components of sustainable forest management.
Colleagues, your volume has gone off. Your sound.
With the government, I'm requesting that we pick the potential based, for example, he has mentioned the class of tropical high forest, and he has mentioned two sections. Section 1 was the highly well stocked, and the other one low stocked. So the potential for high stocked is the science, has it reached the climax? Does it actually add anything on its current stock at that level for the well stock? So that potential can be picked. The IPCC calls it flax, but why not pick on the flax and put it to the market if we need for the market? Then there is the other potential and the other one which he has picked. Then there are also others which include agroforestry, which he has failed to pick. Maybe it is related to we are hiding under data, but we did not stop him from using existing data because he has quoted a gentleman already who had removals, for example.
Roy.
Yes. Roy. So if Roy could be quoted, so can also others who are also concerned with their potentials, so that the country's potential could be enhanced. And hence, our NDC sections would feel comfortable that what they are using as their targets are actually within the potential realm. And we use that when we are preparing the RED Plus strategy, which we requested you to pick. So we have an opportunity to revise the RED strategy in the next 2 years, and we would be happy to contribute to that potential being picked properly. So this study has already helped us to identify the removal factors, and I had wanted that where the removal factors are not known, you'll be allowed to use the actual default ones. Because the default ones exist, but they are for tier 1. They do exist, but they are for tier 1. Still, it doesn't take away the potential using tier 1. It only allows you to put a plus or minus, giving that estimate a gauge of probability of certainty. Thanks. I have a lot of things, but thank you that what you have opened should not be closed.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, Leroy, for the presentation. Okay, two things that I want to raise. First of all, I want to applaud your on the recommendation that I want to talk about. The recommendation on the next NDC. I think I've proud that you have mentioned the importance of including smallholder contributions. A whole range of them, the forestry practices that have been done by the smallholder farmers, but also increasingly, even private sector. I've known, for example, banks heavily investing in forestry, but now we need to find out what is it that they are doing. So it's very important that we extend this beyond smallholder farmers, but also the non-traditional forest planters, if you want, because they are getting into it. The other thing is on you mentioned that one of the first recommendations said that you want to centralize, and then eventually you said you want to decentralize. I want to take it from there, because the idea is that it's decentralized, it's not centralized.
because it's confused me. Okay, you did clearly. But apart from that, it is a problem for all sectors, because I was in a meeting only this week in the energy sector. It's a big problem that people are saying we're working, exactly what you say, that the data is in silos. So I want to actually find out what I'm going to do about this, because this is very sensitive, because what you put on paper is what we go with. It's what will inform Mr. Semambo's plans and the IGC and whatever you report at the global level. So I want to clarify that. But if you say you are decentralized, I think we need to take this and, Robert said, brainstorm on it. Should we decentralize or centralize? Thank you.
Okay, that's all. And then, yeah.
Thank you very much. First one, thank you, Mehdi, for their first presentation. I think quite useful and constitute some interesting points for debate. It's quite useful. Thanks a lot. Second point, I'd like to thank the presenters. I think the work is obvious and clearly highly technical, and there's a lot of input in it. So my contribution is just to share a bit an area that has been of concern to us for some time. And I think the simplest way to share it is to bring the background. In traditional forestry, inventory was associated to measuring individual trees. And this used to introduce us to a term, a very common term in forestry, MAI, mean annual increment, which meant that each species you could actually evaluate increase a year and then equate that to the area. I think that gentleman there, I think he had a point. The gentleman. Yes, he had a point. Yes, but it's called Vasco. I think you asked more than your point of looking at the species also, I think can contribute to giving us a good value there. Inventories used to take about 5-year period, and then in between, much of the work that you are actually reporting would then infeed into that. But without exact species sort of quantification, we may need to think of solutions of how to compensate for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, the presenter and the team. I have some comments I want to put across for purposes of usability of the report. I will start by appreciating that this is very good information for us as a country. That's why I was saying that don't please quote Emily, because it will remain Emily's report. And to find some bit of difficulty with this report. So just find a way of improving it. Government is very lucky that even when they are supported by a technical expert or resources, at the end of it, government owns. So government just appreciate you for the contribution of given, whether technical or financial. So in the way of using this report, please try to clear those areas, okay? It will help us. But don't forget WWF, etc. But if you give the total responsibility of this report to FSSD, it adds value in terms of ownership of the information, data, and government usability. That is number one. Number two is what the lady over there mentioned, that you need to just standardize the units. I think that one don't need to do it. Then on the aspect of recommendations, These recommendations, you don't give them to CCD, they are not for CCD. The recommendations are for the forestry sector. The forest sector, we are talking about the players, isn't it? Government and non-government, provided they agree that these recommendations is what they need to take into the NDC. Our work is to receive, and we set the target together, isn't it? So the recommendations are not for CCD, the recommendations are for the people who are working in the forestry sector. Whether they are trading, whether they are regulating, whether they are planting or doing what, the recommendations are for the forestry sector group. And I think that will be very, very important. So all what you want to recommend in this report, to future in the NDC or by the NDC, the agreement is by the forestry sector group. Because at the end of the day, we shall put, but they will be responsible to implement and report on them. So they are the owners of what goes there, and they are the owners of the implementing, and they have responsibility to report on all what is in the NDC. So I think that will be very, very important. Therefore, let the recommendations be very clear. On the aspect of data, I think I always found a problem that there is a lot of data, but then people say that we are not getting the data. So data is not there. Because if there is a lot and you cannot get that lot, then it is not there. You get what I'm mentioning. People say that there is a lot of data, there is a lot of data going on. But if that data is not on the table, you cannot access it. So where is the data? Meaning that if the data is not shared, it is not authentic. So the data should be open source or should be published, isn't it? So we don't count on things which are not in the public domain. And I think this is why I said that the recommendation have to be very clear. For example, we don't have information on loans, isn't it? So if that is the case that is affecting our computation, we make it as a recommendation. The people from the forest, they have resources, they will get the money, they have supporters to come in to implement the recommendation coming from this report. Okay? That will be very, very important because they are moving forward to improve on the MRV under the forestry sector, isn't it? So how would you improve the MRV when you don't have to work on the aspect of the data? Logically, it not be possible. So all the areas that have hindered proper computation into this, isn't it? Let it become as a recommendation. It requires them to vote emission factors, isn't it? We put as a recommendation because the more you have your natural emission factors, the more you become closer to the accuracy, isn't it? So that now the recommendation can be picked and implemented. You don't mind whether there is money or not. There is always goodwill of partner and support government, isn't it? So to me, I think that is very, very important. Now, the other aspect which I want to mention is that it would have been very good if not yet done. That when we're looking at the emissions and the removals, to do the three clusters. One is the journey which I have presented, that when you bring in the natural forests and the plantations, these are the emissions and these are the removals. But there are decision makers that we want to see between these two clusters. What are the emissions from the natural forests and what are the removals? Because these are informing decisions. Then what about the emissions from the plantations and what are the removals? And for us to know that the plantations are for the short time, isn't it? So that despite that they are increasing in terms of the acreage, but we've been very clear that it is because of the plantations and some areas which are managed, maybe perhaps under the wildlife reserves, isn't it? Because they have too much protection as compared to the Central Forest Reserve. So these all indicators are giving direction to government and they become a planning tool. So if you have that characterization, that will have the bigger picture of the removals combined with the natural and the plantation, and then we go in and look at the removals with the natural forests and the removals, then we look at the emissions in the plantations and emissions and the removals from the plantations. Maybe when you go into the net zero or the balancing, you can also make some bit of decisions. You can have actually more emissions from the plantations because they plant and clear. But again, you can have more removals if they kept standing, isn't it? So what do we need to do then? in terms of policy direction and management. That will help us in terms of improvement, but also gives a bit of clarity. And then I'm giving the last recommendations. I'm very sure that you work with this gentleman called Dave, and I've been using the IPCC, isn't it? So it is really very important because the IPCC provides the default values, but also it gives the categorization of the data that you require to input in the software, isn't it? So it would be very good that you are making recommendations that are speaking the software being used to compute these emissions we're talking about. For example, if you talk about grassland, isn't it? Do we have the data in all the grassland to help us to feed it to software to do the proper computation? If you don't have the data under the grassland, or there is a gap, you say there is a gap in the grassland, it's A, B, C, D. So that now those who are not playing with the software on a daily basis, and they are not the one that are managing, but they are the ones supposed to provide the data, they know where the gap is existing. Because there is a demand in the software, isn't it? But the people who are in charge of this data are not playing with the software on a daily basis. So that will actually help in terms of improving, because the ultimate goal is about the MRV, isn't it? So it will help that under the AFORU, looking at the whole sector, this is the data categorization and the requirement to go into the software, isn't it? So as Uganda, under this category, we okay, then we shall take, isn't it? Under this category, we are doing bad. Maybe the data is not disaggregated. It is there, not disaggregated. And then it will help us to make for up. So to me, I think that will help a lot. And also, as we try to work on the problem of reporting, we are not short of regulations to require people to report. Actually, these regulations are there, isn't it? It is the practice that the reporting is not coming in. That's why people say that there's a lot of data, but it's not captured. But even those who have to report, are they reporting? So those are some of the questions. It is between us as a government players, but even our stakeholders, isn't it? That they also have to report. Otherwise, without reporting, you are not going to be cooking the data and the figures, isn't it? If people are not reporting, let them take that it is their obligation to report. And when they report, then we shall improve and give a better picture to allay the fears, which my sister here was trying to say that are these figures real? For example, the figures are real, but on the ground, you are not seeing them. On the ground, you are not seeing them, but these are picked from already the analysis and assessment that have been done. So, and I think that is really very important, including the aspect of the smallholder farmers. Why the NDC is like that? You don't put things which you don't have control over. So when you bring in the smallholder farmers, are you going to make them that keep this tree standing until this period of time? You get it, because this is a commitment you are putting yourself. But we know that whatever they are doing is actually adding into the commitment. So how do we better represent them in the NDC? Because they are doing a lot of work. I think that will help us to be very clear. Issues about proper recommendations. It will help to solve the problem. This report cannot solve all the problems in the forest, but it can give us indications that can help us to improve. Thank you very much.
The last speaker, I'd like to thank you all. At my last job, my one job, listen. Okay.
Okay, quick one. First of all, thank you all for the kind words and recommendations given. We really appreciate. And we appreciate those additions that are coming in. Yes, I'm happy that many players are here, both say government and non-government. For the many efforts, I know some of us have already all of those efforts there. One key recommendation we talked of in the MRB is actually to capture those small activities happening. With the right methodology in terms of action and non-action, we can still be able to track those changes, okay? No matter the smallholders. So with that, I want to talk about the issue of decentralizing. I talked about. You see, with decentralization of data, I mean, when you look at activities happening, let's say, okay, decentralization brings in ownership and transparency. Okay? When you have data, like you said, let's go to the Ministry of Energy you're talking about, and you have people doing activities like, say, in clean energy. Okay? Those small activities of clean cooking stoves, the number distributed with a V, if they have the computation approach of the stove they're using on the volume they use for wood, and then the emissions, we should be able to track all that. The one organization that comes and gives clean, energy saving stoves, we should be able to track that data. Okay? So it can be tracked at the district, and then we send it into the ministry. But we are saying this information is happening, a lot is happening, but we don't know. Like he said, when I was doing my master's, the professor told me that if you don't publish, we don't know your work. Okay? Yeah. So at the end of the day, people have good reports. Actually, when you go to people's offices, they have them. But they're not published. So I know I tell them it is yours. Because you can't say that we have been doing a lot of work and it is not known either at the district or at the nation. That is decentralization. Okay? But at the end of the day, the platform captures it. The homes should be able to receive those activities. Then, one thing, you talked of tree planting. One issue that normally hits me hard is the tree planting activities. I see. I do appreciate the roots, but as we are pushing, there's a sorry, I'm going to talk about it not here, but I want to talk to the Assistant Commissioner first. Yeah, I once told him about the survival rate. So how do we report them? And the statistic says I have planted 200,000 trees. Me, I would say if we are targeted in our planting and we can follow, okay, we can still have the work. It is a contribution, by the way, but still we lack all that information. Then lastly, in terms of recommendations, I mean, the recommendations are actually more clear. I'm very sure you're going to read the report. You look at the recommendations. When I talk about most of them, they are summative here. Each actually has a detailed approach to them, and they communicate to all players. They're not actually directed to one player, Yes. But it's just that it has been a historical issue, okay? That if you want authentic data, you have to look for NFA. There will be the clearinghouse for the data.
But that also brings another point, that when you are referencing your report,
yes,
you have got the data from the NFA report, maintain it as NFA report, because that's the answers.
Yes.
But when we're doing now the recommendation moving forward from now,
okay,
direct that to FSSA. Okay?
Yes.
So that will help a lot, because if you put it back to NFA, it will be nobody's responsibility.
Yeah. I'll get where you're coming from. Okay, so with that, I think my responses are done. Oh, one last one. You talked about the species level. I think you are the same question you are talking about sometime back. That is there 3 in simple terms. Okay? The day Uganda works up to that level of detail, we shall be winning heavily. And I would say it's not far. In the process of developing emission factors and biomass factors, we can go to the level of detail of species. Yes, the biomass report still I really appreciate NFA they have done that, but there are few. They take the dominant species, okay, in these tropical forests. And over time, I believe, with players around, yeah, there's a lot of work with that, and it can be captured. But it is hectic constantly. Yeah, but we shall be there. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I think my one job that's left is to ask you, we validate them with the understanding that the comments, the issues you've raised will be addressed, and then they can share the final report. Yes?
Yeah, I need to confirm whether to address
Have you heard? I was asking, do we validate you with the understanding that all the comments and the issues that have been raised will be addressed, and then you can share the final report?
Yes.
Will you address them? Okay, so that's a yes.
I want to move the motion.
Yeah?
I would like to move the motion that we adopt the report with all the amendments.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah.
I want to separate it and break it.
Okay, we have a second place.
Yes.
I thank you for raising the motion. I want to support the motion and to request that they can make a table of the responses. Some of the points we are mentioning are difficult for this assignment. You will simply prepare a table and mention that these were the points mentioned, and then you will say how we treated them. And then that's what you say. The text you have adjusted this, but this one is beyond us, and we have left it as it is for our clients to take over, so that we don't become another terms of reference.
Anyway, thank you very much. Have a good evening. We are going to listen to the next steps, and then we'll be, I think, free to go, right? Okay, good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, FSSD. Thank you all who have joined us today. And most importantly, thank you for accepting our report. WWF is in the room. My heart was pounding that if you reject the report, where am I going to get the money? So nonetheless, the report has been accepted with the amendments, and the action is, I think by 30th, we should get a revised report. To get a revised report. This report had the copyright was when we were developing the TOR. They are still here. We will talk to WWF to see how this report can remove that tier of taking it to FSSD in consultations with the commissioner and the team at Emily and the WWF. Because you know there are people who have also invested time and resources. So we need that issue of copyright. But most importantly, I'm happy we are getting new information to counter Global Forest Watch. Me, that's my main point. And as we go, leave this room, there are 3 announcements I'm making. One is each of you will be entitled to a facilitation for your time. And as you know, it will be via your mobile money. 2, we have teas and bites. They are not in this room because it was a small room. There's a wedding which was replaced. Very important, supposed to be part. So they're just in the corridor. Please don't leave us the teas and bites. 3, we have a team which has been working to see this good work improve. And I can't ignore this team without asking it for recognition. Can we ask members of the technical working group to all stand up?
My team is out.
They are all out. Please, Augusta, Ellie. Why we got this team, monitoring a team of people collecting data and knowing the field much more than you and supervising them was a lie. So we had to reach out to government and say, please, we need more hands. And the FSSD gave us a team. We wrote to Climate Change Department. They gave us a team. And these are the experts who have been working behind the closed scene to whip the consultants, give you the product, you see. So we need to really applaud that team. Yes, it is there. And I have requested that the way they cite in the IPCC reports, the assessment reports, we have the lead reviewers or the lead authors and then the technical review, because I don't think money would be the main way of appreciating people who put time in reading and correcting. People need recognition, isn't it? And we have agreed that we are going to recognize all this able-bodied team of 15 people who have been providing the technical guidance to see this report. That said, I wish to say from me and the rest of the team at Emily, we are so grateful and we are honored for you coming and joining us today, our last day of work in 2025. And we wish you a Merry Christmas and a blessed 2026. And we wish you peaceful election. Good evening.